My name is Ted, 30-year-old, and still single. After graduating from college, I started working as a salesperson at a company. The main products of my company are metalwork, creating parts used in various machines. It's a pretty well-known company in the industry, with stable performance. I've always done well in sales, though saying I've never faced tough times would be a lie. I was even being considered for a promotion to section chief, but a single incident turned my career upside down. One day, I received an angry call from a major client I was in charge of, claiming that the parts delivered did not fit. I've been involved with the sales of a product that we've been delivering for many years, right from its development stage. It's also the main product of our department, receiving orders of tens of thousands every month, and without it, our clients' production lines could even stop. That's why I always handled our transactions with the utmost care to ensure there were no mix-ups with the product numbers. There's no way the wrong product could have been delivered. In a rush, I issued instructions for the correct product order while also striving to get a handle on the situation to identify the cause. Upon investigation, I found a specification change document with alterations that made no sense, and on it was a signature that wasn't mine. It turns out, a coworker from my cohort, Ethan, had apparently contacted the client under my name to communicate changes in specifications. From the client's perspective, they would naturally be upset, expecting the specifications to have changed, only to receive a product with the old specifications. Despite reporting this to my department head and the branch manager, they wouldn't believe it wasn't my fault. Recently, a similar mistake had occurred in the department next door, and measures had just been put in place to prevent a recurrence. With repeated ordering mistakes in our own branch, the branch manager, already under fire at an executive meeting, was furious. I was ordered to stay at home, and Ethan took over all the client dealings I had built up over the years. Can I at least handle the cleanup for this order mistake? My heartfelt pleas were quickly dismissed by the branch manager. 2 weeks later, after my suspension was lifted, the order given to me was a reassignment to the manufacturing facility. The thing is, Ted, we want you to gain some hands-on experience with the manufacturing process, so you can really bring that knowledge back into your sales work. It's just for a few years, you know. With those words, the branch manager hurriedly encouraged me to leave the room. Being shifted from sales to the factory floor was effectively a demotion, and no one in the past have ever returned. I was prepared for this, but it still hit me hard. I was so shocked that I considered resigning right away, but that would have played right into the hands of the branch manager, my supervisor, and Ethan, and more importantly, it would have felt like betraying all the clients who had helped me along the way, so I held back. I have to repay them by making quality products on the factory floor. With that thought, I decided to take on the job at the factory. The factory workers, knowing I came from a sales background, didn't hide their disdain for me from the start. "What's the matter with you? Can't you even do this? Look at Mr. Elite here, can't even lift this. Do it yourself. What, you haven't been shown how? Must be tough for a fancy degree to not know something without asking, huh?" The machinery and equipment were all new to me, and just looking at the manuals wasn't enough to understand them. Furthermore, the workers had modified the rules and workflows to suit themselves, making it impossible for an outsider to make sense of it. I had to constantly ask the workers everything from how to use the machines to where the tools were kept, and each time, I was met with cold stares and verbal abuse. This work was a 12-hour shift, either from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. or from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. To top it off, the factory was filthy with machine and cutting oils, and operating the machines and setting up the metal components required laborious work, drenched in sweat. Ted, we don't have a shower in this factory. Take your time and have a bath when you get home." When the factory manager told me this on my first day, I thought it was a joke, but there really was no shower. To add insult to injury, It seems they tacked on a rule just as I was assigned, a 2-year ban on personal vehicles. The worker was all pros, and much was clear. Living far from work, I had no choice but to commute by train. Going to work was fine, but on the way back, I could tell I was being blatantly avoided by everyone around me in the train. Day in and day out, I was verbally abused at work, and during the commute, I was treated like garbage by those around me. My spirit gradually began to fray. Then, one day after several months of this, coming home from a night shift, I spotted a woman on the same train being harassed by a middle-aged man. What's with that attitude after bumping into me? That man is yelling at the top of his lungs. The woman looked down, intimidated and apologizing, but he was having none of it. It was Sunday, and the carriage was empty, but the others just ignored. I was exhausted from the night shift and thought to just lean against the wall and close my eyes without getting involved, but the shouting didn't seem to end. The woman's voice was getting fainter, and I could hear her sobbing. My irritation at the man who was ignoring the apologizing woman grew. Knock it off, she's apologizing, isn't she? Before I knew it, I was stepping in between them. Who the hell are you? The man turned his anger towards me this time. But upon seeing me, he couldn't help but smirk. What do we have here? A hero in such a filthy outfit, huh? Looks like someone from the bottom of the barrel got too big for his britches, acting all high and mighty. Is that all you wanted to say? I had no intention of denying it, but I couldn't stand people who belittled the work of others, no matter the job. In fact, the reason I was able to achieve results as a salesman before coming here was thanks to the workers who were covered in oil and sweat at the factory, something I had come to realize over these past few months. Unfortunately, I wasn't exactly welcomed by those workers. And it seems that these months of physical labor had toughened me up considerably. The guy backed down meekly after seeing me stand my ground and muttered, "Umph, loser," as his parting shot. Thank you, I didn't know what to do. The woman I had helped approached and spoke to me. It's nothing, really, just, don't get too close. I was fully aware of how dirty my attire was without her needing to point it out. But she didn't seem to mind my appearance and came up to talk to me anyway. She introduced herself as Karen, apparently a 28-year-old office worker in a downtown company. She usually commutes by this train as well, but it seemed that today was the first time she had seen me. Do you usually take this train? What time do you normally ride? I was at a loss for words. When I explained that my schedule varied because I worked both day and night shifts, she was surprised. I thought factory jobs were just from morning till evening. I didn't know there were factories that operated differently. I wanted to ask why she thought that, but she got off at the next station. Let's chat again if we ever end up on the same train again. Thank you so much for today. Saying this, she continued to wave and bow until she was out of sight. I never thought we'd see each other again. But strangely, we started running into each other a lot on the same train. Once we recognized each other, we struck up conversations and exchanged numbers, eventually hanging out in our free time. We opened up about our lives too. I learned that her family owned a small workshop in a little town and that she was expected to take over since she didn't have any brothers, but she wasn't interested in doing so. I also shared about the various jobs I've done and why I was currently working at the factory. It turns out her father's workshop was a day operation only. No wonder she was so surprised about night shifts. Over time, I became quite attracted to Karen's character, and it seemed like she grew to like me as well. One day, Karen looked more serious than usual and told me she wanted me to meet her parents. And she also wanted me to see the family workshop. When I visited her home, Karen's parents were really welcoming and friendly, even though it was my first time meeting them. And then, suddenly, Karen's father said he had something he needed to discuss with me. Our workshop is barely earning money each month, and honestly, We're at our breaking point. We've got a bunch of craftsmen with good skills, but they don't know how to sell it. I've been on the factory floor so long. The whole sales and management side of the business is Greek to me. It seems that Karen has introduced me because of my sales experience and knowledge of the manufacturing floor, and that's why I've been invited here today. They're not asking me to quit my current job, which would be a lot to ask for. Instead, they wonder if I could offer advice or teach them some sales techniques on my days off. Of course, we'll make sure you are paid for this job. Karen's mother adds. It seems like she's the one who handles the finances. After giving it some thought, I decided to accept their offer. But I requested, could you employ me as a staff member? I wanted to dedicate myself fully to this, not just dabble in it. Let me handle the job of selling such high-quality products. I'm sure it'll be rewarding for me too, I say with enthusiasm. Looking at the determination on my face, Karen's father nods as if he's made up his mind. The first time I saw the products of Smith Manufacturing, I was astounded. The machined parts, made with absolute precision to match the blueprints, were incomparably better than the products my own company used to sell. And that was accomplished without any significant manufacturing equipment to speak of. I heard that despite their quality, they were being sold for less than half their worth. The thought that such excellence was being overlooked in the world seemed like a loss for society as a whole. With that in mind, I quickly prepared my resignation letter and quit my job. The elites sure lack patience, don't they? The manager chuckled. When I went to the factory to sort out my properties, not just the workers but also the factory manager threw sarcastic remarks to me. But none of that reached my ears. I was too caught up in the exciting opportunity I had found. When I visited Smith Manufacturing, the president and all the employees welcomed me. And it seemed like Karen was pretty happy too. You helped me out in the train, and now you're stepping in to help my dad's family business. I finally felt like I found where I belong after losing it for so long. Right away, I used the network I built during my sales days to pitch our product line. From my brand new desk in a small office, I called around to various contacts nonstop. On the day of the appointment, the person who showed up was a contact from a company I used to deal with. It's been a while, Ted. Who would have thought we'd meet like this? I had been doing business with Steve for about 8 years since I started at my previous job. Now he's working in a small-town workshop. Despite being busy, he made time to meet because of our long-standing relationship. So, how's it going? Has the company been managing okay without me? It was meant to be a light joke, but the moment I said it, Steve's face clouded over. Well, I mean, they're doing all right, I guess. The guy who took over for me, Ethan, seemed to have caused quite a few problems in just a few months. There were delays in delivery, and many products were delivered as special acceptances because they couldn't meet the expected tolerances. Mistakes in quantities were common, and he even managed to send a delivery to the wrong factory once. Thanks to Steve's efforts, things had been kept under control, but he said, "We're about to reach our limit. None of this happened when you were here, Ted." Steve looked pretty down. That's also why I was so glad to hear from you, Ted. I'd only heard from Ethan about a job transfer, and you didn't even say goodbye when you left. I'm really sorry about that. I was ordered by my boss not to contact any clients, but it was incredibly rude, to say the least. So, what's this thing you wanted me to see? Steve initiated. I silently laid out the product samples I had brought on the desk. This is, wow, incredible. Steve's reaction upon seeing them was the same astonishment I had felt the first time. He was amazed by their quality and precision. This shape, this precision, it's unbelievable. And his amazement grew when he learned they were made in a factory that only had outdated machines. I'll talk to my boss right away. Honestly, he's also fed up with our current supplier, so I'm sure he'll be on board with this. Oh, I'm sorry. I mean for you, Ted. Don't worry about it. I'm with Smith Manufacturing now. I said it firmly. At the next interview, alongside Steve, the head of the procurement department was also present. Caught off guard since I wasn't informed beforehand, I was surprised, but that executive made an unexpected proposal. "You're Ted from Smith Manufacturing, right? I've heard about you. To get straight to the point, we want to sign an exclusive contract with you." I was taken aback by the sudden offer. Here's what I was told. "There's a certain company and a supplier. You know who I'm talking about, Ted. We've been getting poor quality from them, so we'd like to switch our entire order to Smith Manufacturing. I hear you've been making parts with old equipment. It may be a bit forward, but would you consider taking on funding from us to upgrade to the latest machinery? We're looking to have you supply most of the parts for our products moving forward, as we'll need a larger quantity. Please continue to produce the top quality products you're known for," he said, bowing his head. I was so overwhelmed by the rapid developments that I couldn't think straight, but once I regained my composure, I bowed deeply and shook hands, saying, "I look forward to a good relationship in the future." I headed back to the company and reported to the president. He was surprised, seemingly at a loss for words, but he tearfully thanked me, saying, "Thank you, Ted, thank you." "President, the real challenge is still ahead of us. We all need to learn how to use the new machines." Initially, the craftsmen were hesitant about the change in their environment. But that was expected. They take pride in their work. Plus, they're all pretty up there in age. There was resistance to using the new machinery. But after I earnestly persuaded them, they agreed. Never in my dreams did I think I'd be learning to use new machinery at this stage of my life. This new salesperson sure has a tough way of using people. The top skilled craftsman, Mike, who's the same age as my dad, just cracked a joke about it. But despite his words, he seemed thrilled that their products were being recognized by the world. Who would have thought our little workshop would be supplying such a big client? Even the president didn't expect to land such a big contract, but it's only natural for this workshop, with its highly skilled craftsmen, to get the recognition it deserves. If anything, we owe it to Steve for setting up that meeting. After I started working at Smith Manufacturing, it wasn't long before executives and the factory manager from my previous job came to visit. Wondering what they wanted, they started off with a plea, "Please," as they bowed their heads. It was predictable, but their sudden change of attitude surprised me. "Ted, I'm really sorry about what happened before. The investigation proved you were right. We'll put you back in sales and have a post ready for you, so please come back." The factory manager even had the gut to say something ridiculous. "I'm truly sorry if we made you feel uncomfortable at the factory. I'd like to apologize on behalf of all the workers. Can we leave past in the past?" The branch manager and the factory manager took turns apologizing, but of course, my mind was made up. I appreciate the offer, but I find my current job rewarding and engaging, so I plan to stay with this company. I intend to work hard so that we can be known as your company's rival. I look forward to your guidance and encouragement. I delivered this response without changing my expression and asked them to leave. Later on, thanks to the hard work of the craftsmen, the transition to the new manufacturing equipment went smoothly, and Smith Manufacturing became one of the most well-known factories in America. We've completely taken over the market share of my old company, and though the company has grown significantly, the president is already talking about retiring and wants to hand over the job to me. "I'm counting on you, Ted," all the employees agree. He says this, but I have no intention of taking over just yet. Machining is a deep field. There's still so much more for me to learn. And I want to make the company something that my wife Karen, who I've married, and our future child can be proud of.